contact. And we're off. I will show you various forms of Kaaba, which just means cube. You may have heard me mention a group called the Rahmani or the Rahmanites. That the saying that's never in the Quran, but every Muslim begins every surah with it. It's actually not originally in the Quran. Let me see if I have my Quran around here. I should have it sitting right here, literally. But yeah, here it is. Oops. Here it is. Right. Uh, no. The proper way to begin a surah. Let's take the cow, for example. I believe it's a cow. Or maybe that's the cave. Sorry. I might be, my Arabic is extremely rusty. Oh, my gosh. How could I get this wrong? Al-Baqarah. Good lord. How did I get that one wrong? Al-Baqarah. Cow. Revealed at Al-Madinah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Alif, Lam, Mim. They have no idea what these words mean in verse 1, by the way. This is the scripture wherein there is no doubt a guidance for those who ward off evil, who believe in the unseen and establish worship and spend of that we have bestowed upon them. And keeps going on like that. But Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim is technically not part of the surah. That's in that little title piece you see at the beginning. That's actually from a group called the Rahmanites or Rahmani. That's not actually their name. Their name were actually called the Midianites and Sinaites, and people who lived in the Sinai and east of there. And they believed in one God. They believed in Jesus and Moses, but they weren't Christians and they weren't Jews. Now, it sounds an awfully lot like Jethro's descendants, you know? Because Jethro knew he wasn't a Jew. And these are also the people that would have made up some of the army that's in both the Ghassanid and Lakhmid army, right? Before they got super brutal. Before the Saracens got super brutal, I mean. And of course, the Ishmaelites would have known of Abraham. So would have the Edomites and the Moabites and the Ammonites. But they would cut stone, cut stone in cubes, 5-sided, because they didn't cut it 6-sided because it was still attached to the living rock, right? And then later on, I believe the Zoroastrians picked up on this idea and actually built these rectangular prayer houses out of stone. But we also have, in Genesis, Abraham and his son building something out of stone, and it's a place known at known as Bethel, which means the house of God, which is, if you're big on interpreting things, you'd say, "Oh, see, this must be Ishmael and Abraham building this holy sanctuary." Except it was in, Palestine, and not in, the middle of Saudi Arabia, just like the Quran takes place in Palestine, or at least some of it does. And then maybe other parts of it take place between the Tigris and Euphrates, but none of it takes place in Saudi Arabia. Why? Because there are mountains, there are cattle, there's trade routes, there are goats, sheep, uh, olive orchard, grape vineyards, and a lot of Christians and Jews, as well as Mandaeans. And Mandaeans never lived in the interior. They lived basically what is now Iraq. I mean, they lived along rivers, either the Jordan or the Tigris and Euphrates. And they pretty much stayed there. And the city, Medina, which means the city, obviously is referring to Jerusalem. And even according to Islamic tradition, it has the angel Jibril turn Muhammad from praying towards Jerusalem to praying towards Mecca. Mecca doesn't appear in the Quran, but Becca does, which is a valley um, in Levant, right where he's at, and that could be the place where supposedly Hagar ran between two peaks, continually, because Mecca is supposed to be related. It's supposed to be in a valley, and it's not. Um, but yeah, let me get into some strange other oddities. But by now, you should have seen many Kaaba by carved or created by the followers of Al Rahman or Ir-Rahman, um, as well as Zoroastrians. And I've also gone over that Muhammad was a name that they used for God, that the Christians used for Jesus, and the Jews used for Moses. But I'll read you something very strange from a very early Muslim caliph. How about that? I don't think you can get better than that. A caliph, a khilafah, right? I mean that's better than than 10,000 scholars. An Islamic caliph. Who is it? You ask. It's Muawiyah. And what does Muawiyah say as he inscribed in Greek? What did he inscribe in Greek? The era of the Arabians in a Greek inscription. I'll read the pretext to this. The way in which the building inscription of Muawiyah in Palestine was carried out reveals how the term Abdallah is to be understood during this time. This inscription from the 42nd year of the Arabian era bears a sign of the cross at the beginning of the last line. This cross is part of the inscription which follows in the Greek language and script. And it goes something like this. And I'll put up a screenshot of what it actually looks like, because I have a picture of it right here. You can clearly see the cross. It says, in the days of Muawiyah, the servant of God, leader of the protectors, the hot baths were preserved and renovated by the conciliar Emir Abdullah, son of Abu Ameos, in the 5th of December, on the 2nd day of the week, in the 6th year of the indication, in the year 726 from the founding of the city, which is the year 42 following the Arabs. That would mean the year 662 or 663. For healing of sick under the supervision of Johannes, also John, the magistrate of Gadara. The title conciliar symbolos mentioned in the inscription clearly corresponds to the Arabian Amir. From this correspondence has surely arisen the misunderstanding that Muawiyah held Byzantine title of protosymbiolos, or prime counselor. Wellhausen is misunderstood here, in that he invoked that only Theophanes as a witness to illustrate the way in which Muawiyah had conducted business and government, namely as a prime counselor among counselors, or Wellhausen's word, like an old Arabian Syed. The Emir carried out public building project was named Abd Allah, as it still is in the case today among many Christians in Syria. This title shows that to have been a member of bureaucracy, carried forward from the traditions of Rome and Byzantium, just as traditions of the Arabian authorities in Syria was carried over from previous centuries. Already in the 6th century, officials in the Arabian government in Syria had borne high Byzantine titles. The fact that the inscription was made in Greek is a sign of imitatio imperiali, imitation of the Byzantine ideas of doing empire, employed by Muawiyah's government in Syria. In this sense, one can say that Muawiyah appears to have also furthered the Sasanian practice of government in the East. In Arabia, he was an Arabian Arab. There, he followed the practice of the Ghassanids, the Arabian predecessors of this region, who tended to make their inscription in Arabic. Well, I disagree with both of them because I believe that Muawiyah, whatever his name was, um, probably wasn't Muawiyah, was actually a Caesar that the 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 Romans couldn't control part of their land, and they were known for splitting the empire in half, and then those halves into halves because, but Constantine started out in Britain, right? And he was in charge of a quarter of the empire, and he wound up taking over the whole damn thing. I think that's what happened here after they became so weak that the Ghassanid rulers, they just said, okay, take Egypt and Syria, protect it for us for until we can get strong enough. And nothing doing there. You had a whole new empire coming up. No longer were the Ghassanids going to be vassals to the Romans, and no longer was the Lacomed going to be vassal to the Persian or Sasanians. So, no, I think this is them acting like Romans because that's just how they thought of themselves. We even see receipts for things like sheep that are that are you know they're acting very, 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 very Roman. The buildings that they're building are very Roman. Um, I mean, building basilicas, building octagonal shrines, um, copying Baalbek. Period of first Umayyad rulers. Arab Empire of the time of Muawiyah, 641 to 682 question mark. I don't doubt those dates. But like I said, I also 622 was the year of peace. Um, that was the year of the Arab. The year of hey, finally have peace. The Romans and and the Persians had declared peace. The Romans won, a Pyrrhic victory, basically. And this is the era of peace, or the era of the Arab. And it's time for the Arab to reign. It starts at 622, and you get these warlords fighting, and you don't get a true leader until Muawiyah, and then you don't get something even looking like Islam until Abdul Malik becomes an iconoclast and builds Dome of the Rock. But you're still long away from something like a Quran, and you're hundreds and hundreds of years away from um, a Sirah or Sunnah or any Hadith. All right, peace to you.